going to heave one. There's a flag. Beckham, a one-handed catch. How in the world?
Oh, my goodness.
And Brandon Carr was back there. I mean, he is insane. How do you make that catch?
Oh, my goodness. This is sick. Put this to music. I don't think he stepped out either. That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Odell Beckham, arguably the most loved and hated New York Giant in the history of the franchise. How do you ask is that possible? Where do we start? Beckham was born on November 5th, 1992, to two loving parents, Heather Van Norman and Odell Beckham Sr. His parents were very accomplished athletes in their own right, and they both went to the same college Beckham would later attend, LSU. The father was a running back, the mother was a track star, and were huge reasons for Beckham's athletic upbringing. They knew from a very early age that Beckham had a passion for sports, not just football, but soccer, basketball, any sport he could play, he had an interest in. And they were a huge reason as to why he eventually wore a New York Giants uniform. But before Beckham could attend LSU, he had to go to high school. And he stayed home at Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and attended Isidore Newman School in New Orleans, Louisiana. The same school that all three Manning brothers attended: Peyton, Eli, and Cooper. How ironic is that? And there, Beckham played football, basketball, and track. Of course, football is where he excelled. He played every position imaginable for the team. He played receiver, quarterback, running back, and cornerback. In his junior year, Beckham caught for 45 passes for 743 yards and 10 touchdowns, while adding 3 more scores on the ground. As a senior is where Beckham really took off and earned himself a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, where he had 50 catches for 1,010 yards and 19 touchdowns, joining Cooper Manning as the only other player in school history to record 1,000 receiving yards in a season. In addition, he rushed for over 300 yards with 6 touchdowns and passed for 90 yards. He won All-State honors and would later go on to play at LSU.
Congratulations. I know this was a decision that was a long time in coming. Everybody thought it would happen, but you took your time and you feel like you made the right decision with LSU, don't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely made the right decision. Had to take my time, don't want to rush into anything. I'm pretty sure I found the right spot for me, so.
And Beckham found himself in the right spot indeed. Beckham was playing for the LSU Tigers, the same university both his mother and father attended years ago, and he was getting set to thrive. In 2011, Beckham's freshman year, he played sparingly, only in 9 out of the team's 14 games. He made his debut on September 3rd against the Oregon Ducks, in which he had 2 catches for 10 yards. Overall, he would finish the year with 41 receptions for 475 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he was named an all-freshman, all-SEC selection. It was really in Beckham's sophomore season where his collegiate career would really take off for the LSU Tigers. In his season opener against the North Texas Mean Green, Beckham returned his first career punt for a touchdown of 70 yards. On September 29th against the Towson Tigers, he had his first career 100-yard game, where he had 128 yards and 2 touchdowns against Towson. He later returned a punt for a touchdown in November against Ole Miss of 89 yards. And for the year, he led the team in receiving with 713 yards and was second in receptions, only to future teammate with the Cleveland Browns and NFL superstar Jarvis Landry. And in his junior year in 2013, Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham took the country by storm to form one of the greatest duos in collegiate football history. Beckham, on September 7th against UAB, had arguably his greatest game in college football history, where he had 136 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also returned a failed field goal attempt for a touchdown of 109 yards, which is tied for the record all time. On October 8th, against SEC West rival Mississippi State, Beckham had a then career-high 179 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns. And for the year, he won the Paul Hornung Award, which is presented annually to the most versatile player in major college football. He finished the 2013 season with 57 receptions for 1,117 yards and 8 touchdowns. He led the SEC with 32 kickoff returns for 845 net yards for the season. After the season, he decided to forego his senior year and enter the NFL draft. After the season with LSU, Odell Beckham trained vigorously for the 2014 NFL Draft Combine, a test that all major athletes are put through before entering the league. In front of all 32 teams, players are measured on their speed, their strength, their endurance, their route running ability. And Beckham passed with flying colors. In front of Jerry Reese and the New York Giants, Odell Beckham, standing at 5'11", 198 pounds, ran a 4.43 40 time with a 38.5-inch vertical leap. He also displayed some of the skills that New York Giants fans would be accustomed to for the next several years, running crisp routes, showing his great hands, and his speed and ability to burst big plays. And just like that, Jerry Reese and the New York Giants were sold.
With the 12th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Odell Beckham, wide receiver, LSU.
There is Odell Beckham Jr., tears in his eyes coming out.
This kid had 5 games over 100 yards, 5'11", 198, 4'4", 40, 38.5-inch vert. I mean, he's got all the measurables, but I also think, Michael, he's one of the best route runners in this draft.
And that's the key. This kid knows how to run routes. We have the speed guys in Watkins. We have the big guy.
Odell Beckham was about to embark on the greatest rookie season in the history of the NFL by a wide receiver. The number 12 overall selection would do it in just 12 games and eclipse 1,300 yards and break several rookie records along the way. He would be the first and only rookie in NFL history with at least 50 receptions at home during his rookie season. He would set the record for most catches ever in a rookie season by a wide receiver. He'd be the fastest player in NFL history to reach 100 career receptions. He'd have the highest average receiving yards total per game for any rookie ever at 108.8. He'd be the only rookie to have at least 11 receptions in consecutive games in NFL history. The only rookie to catch at least 12 balls with 140 or more yards and 3 touchdowns in a game ever. The most receiving yards in a single calendar month for any rookie in the history of football, with 606 in the month of December. The youngest player in league history with multiple games of 10 or more catches in a single season, with 4. The most games of at least 125 receiving yards in a rookie season, with 6. The only rookie in NFL history with 5 games of 90 or more yards in a single month. He is the only player in NFL history to rack up at least 1,300 receiving yards in 12 or fewer games in a season, not just for a rookie, but any receiver ever. The only rookie to have more than one game with at least 125 catches, 10 catches, and a touchdown in a season. And he is the only rookie to post a season of at least 75 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 10 or more touchdowns in NFL history. He'd make his debut game Week 5 against the Atlanta Falcons, off the hamstring injury, and after he missed all of training camp, and would have 4 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. In his first Monday Night Football game against the Indianapolis Colts, Beckham caught 8 passes for 156 yards. Against the Seahawks and Richard Sherman, who was thought to be the best cornerback in football at that point, Beckham had 7 catches for 108 yards. And on November 23rd, 2014, against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, Odell Beckham put on a show. He had 10 catches for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns, which included a one-handed catch hailed as the catch of the year, and by many hailed as the greatest catch in the history of the sport. While driving backwards with full extension of his right hand using only 3 fingers, Beckham was able to haul in a pass down the right sideline thrown by Eli Manning for a touchdown. A catch that was so impressive that the NFL Hall of Fame put Odell Beckham's game-worn jersey from his famous catch in the Hall of Fame. Beckham would go on to win Rookie of the Year. In just 12 short games, Beckham would have 91 catches for 1,305 yards and 12 touchdowns, leading the league in yards per game at the wide receiver position.
And the 2014 AP Offensive Rookie of the Year is
Odell Beckham Jr.
A little nervous, but first and foremost, I got to thank God for getting me here and allowing me to even get on the field. Early in the year, I didn't even know if I was going to have a chance to play. On top of that, thank the Giants organization, my teammates, Big Brother Vic, who looked out for me all year. Mom and Dad who are here, this one's for y'all, this one's for y'all. Brothers Jeremy Hill, Jarvis Landry here, the Royal Familia, without them, I don't know where I'd be, and I'm very happy to take this one home.
Coming off of Odell Beckham's historic rookie campaign, the expectations were through the roof for the 2015 NFL season, and Beckham would not disappoint. In his season opener against the Dallas Cowboys, he was held in check. On September 13th, he had 5 catches for 44 yards, but he would bounce back beautifully week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, where he'd have 7 catches for 146 yards and a touchdown. On October 11th against the San Francisco 49ers, he had 7 receptions for 121 yards and a score. And in week 8 against the New Orleans Saints, Odell Beckham and the New York Giants would take part in one of the highest scoring games in NFL history. The final score would be 52-49. The Giants would lose by 3 in a game that featured over 100 combined points. Odell Beckham had 8 receptions for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. His performance against the Saints was the first of 6 consecutive games with at least 100 receiving yards. After recording 105 yards against Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the following game, he had 104 yards, which included an 87-yard receiving touchdown in a 27-26 loss against the then undefeated New England Patriots. In the very next game against the Washington Redskins, he had 9 receptions for 142 yards and a touchdown. And in the next game against the New York Jets, he had 6 receptions for 149 yards and a score. Against the Miami Dolphins in Week 14, Beckham had a season-high 166 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. During the Week 15 game against the Carolina Panthers, Beckham was involved in multiple confrontations with cornerback Josh Norman. It was pegged as a marquee matchup, the elite corner versus the elite wide receiver, and Beckham let his emotions get the best of him, something that we would see more in the future as Beckham would show the ugly side of his game. He was held to no catches in the first half, and he dropped a would-be touchdown pass early on in the game. He would finish the game with 6 receptions for 76 yards, which included a game-tying touchdown, as the Giants would lose 38-35. The NFL would discipline Beckham for his actions during the contest against the Carolina Panthers and Josh Norman, as he was called for 3 unnecessary roughness penalties and would be suspended for the final game without pay. Odell Beckham and the New York Giants would begin the 2016 season with a new head coach for the first time in over a decade. New York Giants legend Tom Coughlin stepped down and was being replaced by former offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo, who had came over previously from the Green Bay Packers. Beckham, of course, had tremendous success with McAdoo as the OC, and he would try to continue it with McAdoo being the head coach. The Giants also brought in several key free agent acquisitions to reboot the defense in an attempt to make the playoffs, in which they did. They went 11-5 in 2016, and Beckham had a lot to do with it. But much like the conclusion of 2015, 2016, Beckham got off to a rocky start. His first game against the Dallas Cowboys, he was fined over $12,000 for an end zone dance celebration. Week 2 against the New Orleans Saints, he was fined yet again, over $36,000 for a blindside hit on safety Kenny Vaccaro. Week 3 was a rematch against Josh Norman. Norman now playing for the Washington Redskins. And in that game, Beckham became the fastest player in NFL history to 200 receptions, doing so in only 30 games. He finished the game with 121 receiving yards as the Giants lost a close one, 29-27. In Week 6, Beckham caught 8 passes for a career-high 222 yards with 2 touchdowns against the Baltimore Ravens, leading the Giants to a 27-23 victory. In 2016, Beckham started all 16 games for the first and only time up to this point in his career. He had 1,367 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. He made the Pro Bowl for the 3rd consecutive time and was going to the playoffs. But before the game started, Beckham, Victor Cruz, Sterling Shepard, and the New York Giants receiving corps made a vital mistake. They went on the infamous boat trip, and pictures were taken days before the contest against the Green Bay Packers. Rather than training and preparing for the game, Beckham and the receivers were out partying on a boat. Beckham put a lot of pressure on himself, and he would play one of his worst, if not his worst, game in the history of his career, in which he dropped several balls in the playoff matchup against the Green Bay Packers. And yet again, Beckham would end the 2016 season on a sour note. The 2017 season for the New York Giants began with hope and promise for both Odell Beckham and the team alike. They were coming off a year in which they finished 11-5 and had arguably the best defense in the NFL. They also had added All-Pro wide receiver Brandon Marshall to pair up with Odell Beckham, which many thought would be one of the most devastating duos in the league, to go along with standout tight end Evan Ingram, the first-round pick. The Giants' offense looked lethal, and the defense was great the year before. 2017 was arguably the most disappointing season in New York Giants history. They came into the year with Super Bowl aspirations. They finished the year with a 3-13 season. The team was decimated with injuries, including Odell Beckham. He missed the Week 1 contest due to a plagued ankle injury. He came back in Week 2 against the Detroit Lions, finishing with 36 receiving yards as the Giants lost 24-10. In the next game against the Eagles, he had 79 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. During Week 5 against the LA Chargers, Beckham finished with 97 receiving yards and a touchdown, until leaving the game with an apparent leg injury. It was later revealed that he had suffered a fractured left ankle. The next day, the Giants announced that Beckham would undergo surgery and would miss the entirety of the 2017 season. He would only play 4 games. Then, of course, leading into the 2018 regular season, Odell Beckham was caught on camera in a leaked video, a season in which he was looking to strike it big with a huge contract, in bed with a hooker in Paris, in which she was clearly doing cocaine, and he appeared to be rolling a blunt. And even still, after all the off-field incidents, Dave Gettleman and the New York Giants could not look past Odell Beckham's talent. He was coming off a year in which he only played 4 games due to injury, but his first 3 years in the NFL were remarkable. And Dave Gettleman signed Odell Beckham to the largest contract in the history of the NFL for a player at Beckham's position. 5 years, $95 million, 65 of which were guaranteed. In the 2018 offseason, the New York Giants had the 2nd overall selection, a pick in which many Giants fans thought that the New York Giants should go out and draft a quarterback for the aging Eli Manning. Instead, they elected to go with the playmaker, Saquon Barkley, out of Penn State. Barkley came to the Giants and brought them hope for the 2018 season. After all, Odell had only played 4 games the year before. Evan Ingram was coming into his sophomore year, in which he had an impressive rookie campaign. And they had tried to shore up the offensive line by drafting Will Hernandez and signing Nate Solder to a record-breaking contract. Odell Beckham and the New York Giants were hoping to shock the world. Unfortunately for the Giants, they got off to an awful start. In early October, an interview leaked of Odell Beckham and his displeasure with playing for the New York Giants. Remember, just 2 short months after Odell Beckham signed his record-breaking contract with the New York Giants to become the highest-paid receiver in the sport, an interview came out with Josina Anderson in which he showed his displeasure with playing in New York and playing for then quarterback Eli Manning. I don't know, Beckham told Anderson. Like I said, I feel like he's not going to get out of the pocket. We know Eli's not running. But it's a matter of time. Issue. Can he still throw it? Yeah. But it's been pretty safe, and it's been, cool catching shallow routes and trying to take it to the house. But I want to get over the top of somebody. I haven't been in this situation, he said. I haven't been in the place where I felt like I could really go out and do everything I'm capable of doing. It's a tough question, Beckham, who lives in Los Angeles during the offseason, said. Obviously, I love seeing the sunshine all the time. I love being in LA, just like the atmosphere, but this is where I am. And then finally, he said, I remember before games, I used to get that. I used to get butterflies, like good butterflies. I was anxious. And now when I step on the field, it's something completely different. It's not butterflies. 2018 would mark the last season for Odell Beckham in a New York Giants uniform. The team finished 5-11 and had missed the playoffs yet again. Beckham missed the last 4 games due to injury, and that had marked 16 out of the last 32 contests in which Beckham had to sit. Mara and Gettleman grew weary of Beckham and were looking for a trade partner. And a trade partner they found in the upstart Cleveland Browns, a team with a fresh young quarterback coming off a very inspiring season in which they nearly finished 500 for the first time in nearly 10 years. Beckham would bring some hope to the Browns. The Giants were looking for a fresh start. The Browns offered the Giants a first and third round selection to go along with a former first round pick in Jabril Peppers, who would replace Landon Collins, who the Giants would later let walk to free agency. There are many words that could describe Odell Beckham's time with the Giants. Some would say exciting. Some would say fun. Others would say tumultuous. Some people said he was a leader. Some people said he was confident, passionate. Others said he was cocky and a locker room distraction. But one thing that cannot be debated about Odell Beckham, when he was between the sidelines and healthy with the New York Giants, he was one of the greatest wide receivers who ever played the sport. Some Giants fans will remember the good times with Beckham. Others will remember the bad. He put up record-setting numbers that resulted in very few wins. Little of that had to do with Beckham, as the team was surrounded with a very poor defense for most of it, or an aging quarterback. Beckham will now play the remainder of his career, or at least the foreseeable future, with the Cleveland Browns. And the Giants will move on with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones.